Okay. Hi, good day. This is Don with Managers. Today we have Ted Villwock, Supply Chain Manager. Ted, could you introduce yourself? Let the people know what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Ted Villwock. I'm a supply chain manager for a company by the name of TP Aerospace down here in Orlando, Florida. Right now, I'm in the industry of aviation and a little bit of mixture of that and standard supply chain operations. I'm working with aircraft wheels and brakes. We are an international company based out of Copenhagen, so we do a lot of business around the world, and that's been an awesome opportunity for me to really build up my own supply chain management skills. And I'm looking forward to this amazing opportunity that I have here to be able to discuss with you some of my background and my experiences.
All right, Ted. Yeah, because this podcast is we use it to inspire people and hear other people's struggles on the journey to success. So Ted, how did you get into transportation to logistics?
Yeah, supply chain. Well, basically, it really started for me in the Marine Corps. I was in the military for a number of years, and they do a wonderful job of giving you direction about what you're going to do in life. And I saw how much of a correlation there was between information technology and supply chain and warehousing. And that really developed a passion for me because, I was one of those kids when I was younger growing up who enjoyed spending time on computers and learning many, many different things. And one of the big things for me, though, was leadership and working with other people. And so the amazing thing was in the military, they said, hey, let's put all that together. We need someone who's tech savvy, who's able to work on processes to come up with the best way to support, in this case, the squadrons and the aircraft, but also to get along with other people and to make it happen as a group and as a team, especially in the Marine Corps environment that really pushes that teamwork emphasis. So for me, that was just that hit the nail on the head with what I was looking for. And I had some amazing opportunities through some wonderful leaders to really expand my experiences. And, I think that additional challenge and those stresses that I went through made me stronger and a little more knowledgeable on the subject.
Right. So how long have you been in the logistics field?
From 2004, I want to say, is pretty much when I started in the military. Prior to that, just like any teenager, you have many different jobs, in those environments where you're doing a little bit of warehousing, a little bit of this. So it all kind of adds up. But I can honestly say the real emphasis for me when it comes to logistics and supply chain has been since around 2004. Again, it started heavily in aviation, but that quickly moved over to just general distribution and management. Just whether it's, I don't know if textiles is a good word for it, or just paper products that we were managing, or in another instance, going back to the airline. So, it's been a ride. It's been a journey for sure.
All right. So now, what exactly, this is your highest point you reach here, or you plan to go further and further?
I would hate myself if I allowed myself to think that this is the highest point. I don't think I ever want to be at that point where I'm like, okay, I'm happy, I'm satisfied. Right now I'm reading a wonderful book by the name of Mindset, and the premise behind the book was that you have individuals who have a fixed mindset who are just happy, saying, okay, this is where I am in life, and then you have those other individuals who say, well, you know what, all these challenges I'm experiencing in life, it's not saying that this is my highest level. Instead, it's saying this is just the next step to make me stronger. So I definitely do not want to say this is my highest level. For myself, I have aspirations to, well, first and foremost, financially be able to support my family. But again, to challenge myself and to develop my leadership skills. I've had the amazing opportunity and the blessing, really, to work with some wonderful teammates, some wonderful employees in the past who just did amazing things. And I think my observations of their success, basically me putting up a scenario or a situation that allowed them to be successful and seeing them be successful, is what made a world of a difference to me. And so I don't see my top being success for me. I see my top being a continual success for other people around me. And that's really what I'm trying to look for.
All right. You talk about books, and you talk about the people around you, like
Mhm.
influence wise. What books and stuff help you along the way?
Oh, geez, there's a whole, I don't know where to begin on that one. I can tell you right now, I have a book that's very popular at my job right now. It's actually required reading for a lot of the management, and it's a wonderful book, and I'm sure 90% of everyone's already read it. It's called Good to Great. Another fantastic book. It's a little outdated. I think it's 1990s is when it was written for the most part. It's very analytical when it comes to companies and what makes a company work, what makes an individual have that leadership skills needed to really develop the company and not allow complacency to reside in the workforce. So to summarize, if you have a company that's, well, we've always done it this way, just same thing with the personalities. We've always done it this way. We're happy with that. They usually don't survive. And the reason for that is that the world is constantly changing. The environment we're working in, the industries, the way technology impacts everything. We have to adapt. We have to grow. And the only way to do that is to have a growth mindset. So Good to Great did a wonderful job of really emphasizing that growth mindset from a corporate level. Again, going back to the book Mindset, another wonderful book. Literally, I think, as silly as it sounds, I'm one of those individuals who kept a lot of my college textbooks. And every once in a while, like level 3 leadership, I'll just open these books up and just kind of skim through it. Even, some of the IT stuff, if I'm sitting at work saying, man, I forget how I did that in the computer on Excel, I'll open up one of my older books over here and kind of dig through it. So if there's one thing I can say for sure, it's books are a necessity in life.
Yes, and the people that had an influence on you on your journey.
Yeah, there's so many of them. And I think last you and I were speaking off the radio here, off the communication, the podcast. I had mentioned just one or two individuals, and specifically, I was looking at people who impacted me personally. I think that the one example I gave is a wonderful one. I had a captain in the Marine Corps who challenged me in a way that was not fun at the time. But at the same time, it forced me to grow my own skills and my own abilities, and to develop my own kind of self-confidence because of that. I think finding leaders like that who challenge you is wonderful. Right now, I think one of the biggest learning lessons I've had in my life was the importance of a mentor. Sometimes that mentor is a father. I have a wonderful, amazing father who helps me out in many, many different ways, and I love him to death. Lots of experience in business, so I'm blessed that I can go to him and ask him questions. I also have a former boss who I used to work for, who, to this day I consider my mentor, and I will call him, whenever I have stresses and challenges in life, and just kind of vent a little bit. And it's just wonderful to have that third person kind of say, hey, stop being an idiot, hit me on the backside of the head, this is what you need to do, or have you thought about this? And having that person in your life, even if it's not a father or even necessarily a friend who you can get along with, sometimes just having that person who wakes you up, who knows you, who's worked with you, having a mentor like that is huge.
Yeah, of course. That's a mentor is a real is something that could help like by 50-60%. Trust
Easy.
me.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, the things you wish you'd have known before now. What did have anything you wish you'd have known before that you might have do things differently?
Yeah, that's a deep question. I think the things that I wish I would have known beforehand was, let me give you one that I've really been dwelling on in my life. Has been very impactful to me. A challenge that I've had. It's learning that being the smartest in the room does not guarantee success. Being the hardest working in the room does not guarantee success. The other part to that, and a big part of that, is knowing how to get along and work well with others. And that's sometimes a big challenge, especially when I'm one of those individuals who I see a challenge or a process that needs fix, and I'm going to develop all the tools needed to make that process fix, and I'm going to challenge that and move forward with it. But doing that in a way that's respectful of others and other strengths, not necessarily the people working for you or with you, but just the people working the other side of the room you don't think you relate with at all. Or, it's thinking about your colleagues. My boss right now over in Copenhagen came out with that term, think about your colleague. And I love it because that to me really speaks to communication. It's speaking about, okay, I have to think about the person who's, let's say, accounting. And while I don't work in accounting, my actions have an impact on them, even if I don't think about it. And so it's really so important just to think about what's going to impact them and to be able to work and give them the tools that they need so that my daily operation, my daily tasks don't negatively impact them, but instead complement what they're trying to do. And I think that builds good relations with others. I certainly hope it does. Yeah, if I had to say one thing I really wish I would have focused more on throughout my development instead of really recently, it's how to build those relationships a bit better in the workplace.
Yes, it's important. Relationships is very important in any form, home, work, in any form. Um, what about your biggest failure you think you had? What's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'd be hard pressed to tell you one, honestly. And it's not to say that I don't have failures. I have so many of them. It's hard to say which one's the worst.
The biggest one.
I go back to the mindset book. I've had failures where, from a leadership aspect, I haven't thought about my employees. And I've learned the hard way the importance of that and the importance of listening to the subject matter experts. I've had failures where I didn't develop good communication with my management, where I felt that what I wanted to do was the right way and I didn't really want to hear what other people were saying. To this day, I'd probably be hard pressed to say it wasn't the right way, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. And that's kind of the learning lesson from that one. I've had so many failures, but it goes back to the mindset. I can either look at those failures as, oh man, I messed up, or I can just say, okay, I learned something today and I'm going to do something different tomorrow. And, I think by not dwelling on those failures, it allows me to push forward a little bit harder and a little bit faster each day.
All right. And the most important, besides the what you learned from the failure, was the most important lesson you think you learned in life?
That's another deep one. I think as a manager specifically, I could be really ephemeral and I could just say, family and relationship with God and everything. I think all those things are obviously the most important. But from a managerial perspective, specifically dealing with people at work and dealing with the environment, it's that there is a huge value to taking a step outside of yourself and really looking in the mirror. I think that's a huge learning lesson for all of us. Being able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. It gets you in those weeds. Being able to pull back, get that 1,000-mile view, get the big picture. Look to see how you're impacting that big picture, what your role is. To me, I think that's been one of my superpowers, for lack of a better term. That's one of those things that really enable me to think outside the box and come up with new ideas. And that I think really anybody in a workplace who's going to who wants to have an impact, who really wants to change things, they have to stop. They have to get out of the weeds. That's the biggest thing. There's definitely a value to being in the weeds and understanding the minutia of how to do things. But it's a totally different world when you're saying, okay, well, this is how we do it, but why do we do it? You're talking about books. Another fantastic book that speaks to this, Simon Sinek wrote, Start with Why. Saying, okay, we know what to do. We know sometimes how to do it, but why do we do it? And that's really what I've been focusing on so much, just to focus on my why, and how it relates to the company that I work for.
That's good. The next question I have is, what are you most proudest of?
What do I most what? I'm sorry.
Proudest of.
Whew. I cannot emphasize it enough. I think every single time I see one of the people who's around me, who I'm able to give them either a tool or a word of advice, or just even, through my own actions, through my own example, when they can see that and I see them making decisions that are really smart and I see them becoming successful, that to me is a huge win. That's what I'm most proud of, when I can say, hey, I helped that person. One quick story, actually. So, going back to the military times, I think this does a great job portraying that in a kind of a comical way. I just got over to fleet. I was a sergeant at the time. I had this junior Marine come up to me, and he was straight out of boot camp, junior guy. I think he was a private at the time. And he tells me, hey, Sergeant Villwock, I forgot my boots today. And I'm like, this is your first day. And I just flipped out on him. I mean, I put him at the position of attention, started yelling and screaming. and I really made sure that I told him, hey, you never, first of all, will ever come to, formation or come into a squadron without having all of your gear that you've been properly issued. Number one. Number two, have backups, throw some in your trunk. There's no reason, there's no excuse not to have that. And the funniest thing to me, and the moment that made me the most proud, was 5 years later when he came up to me and he said, hey, at the time, Staff Sergeant, thank you so much for, telling me that. And I still remember that to this day. And I still keep an extra pair of camis of clothing in my trunk of my car. And that saved my butt on multiple occasions. And, I just couldn't have been happier. I mean, that to me was like, you know what? It's small, insignificant thing to me made such a difference to him. And that's huge.
All right. And as a supply chain manager, what do you think is your secret weapon that makes you a different manager, like a better person to get along with, or
Those are two questions. I think I go back to the whole, thinking outside the box, really pulling myself away and looking at the big picture, I think makes me a better manager. That, and I would definitely say listening, listening, listening to the subject matter experts, listening to the people who are doing the job on a daily basis. And I certainly am not an individual who puts myself up above them in the sense that I don't mind getting on on the ground with my jeans dirty. I do that way too often nowadays. Wearing boots and actually moving some wheels around or getting the job done because it shows an example to them. I feel that showing an example, being that person that they see doing the job, but at the same time, being the person who's able to think, okay, well, this is why we're doing it today, but big picture is we need to change this. And they may not understand that right now, but a month or two down the road, once we've accomplished all these smaller tasks, all of a sudden, bam, light goes on. It makes sense. Now I know why we did it this way. I think, from that perspective, that's, it's just so important. It's perspective. It's perspective. And of course, it goes back to the whole, if you're focused on the job, if you're focused on other people's success and you're less focused on your own perception, who you are to others, because now it's just more about them than it is you, so it also humbles you for sure.
okay. And the somebody out there wanna be uh logistics manager, supply chain manager, transportation manager. What good word you have for them? What advice? What from your journey? What could you tell them to take them to the next step?
You know, I've again, part of the leadership is I do talk to a lot of people around me. I love talking to people. And I've given a lot of different kinds of advice to different kinds of people who are struggling with different things in their lives. I think I've come across people who are, really, really outside the box thinking. They're motivated. They have the perfect personality for it, but they don't want to put forth the effort in school. Education is huge. It is so important. Not necessarily it's going to teach you how to do the job. It's not meant for that. Education to me was 100% about developing the discipline to be able to pick up the book and learn, because it's not a matter of what you learn, it's the fact that you're constantly learning. So today I might be learning, something that's it's let's say Six Sigma, and then all of a sudden, I go to a company that has no value at all for Six Sigma. We tried that years ago, it doesn't work, and they gave up on it. But okay, fine, we learned something new. We'll challenge ourselves, TQ, and we'll learn something different. It doesn't matter what you're learning, but constantly learning, that's huge. I've also come across individuals who are very studious, and on the flip side, and they're very, for lack of a better term, they're cocky. They want to say, well, I know better, and you need to do it my way, and I don't understand why you want to do it this way. And you have kind of an autocracy kind of management. And don't be that guy either. Don't be that person either. Those are the individuals who distance other people. They're the one who creates toxic work environments. And, you know, unfortunately, I think I've probably been through way too many of those environments. And I'm sure most management has, especially the more experienced you become. They're not fun. They're horrible. And that's not what you want to experience. So, for me, it's if you are able to go to work and say, hey, I'm respected and I'm valued and I'm listened to by the people around me, then you create a good environment, and that's a huge learning lesson that I had to go through myself. That was actually a lesson I learned from an individual who I didn't get along with very well, but I learned that right there, respect, value, and listen to, man. I take that one to the grave. That's a wonderful saying.
Yes. In this position he is right now, um, and where you come from. Is there anything you're curious about still right now?
Curious about, I mean, as far as education or as far as what?
As far as the transportation, life,
Yeah.
next generation.
Another huge question. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, it's one of those things where I need to constantly challenge myself. And so the books, the two of the last four books I think I've mentioned so far were just recommended to me in the last 5 months. So it's so important to constantly be curious, whether it's about one topic or another. I mean, I'm again, if you I have right behind me, I have books on information technology, I have books on leadership and development and managerial skills. It's so important just to kind of constantly spread out your interest and your knowledge. And on a personal level, curiosity wise is I have the same questions everybody else does. Where's my career taking me? Why am I in the position I am right now? How did I get here? But if I focus and just dwell on that, then it's just going to kill me. So I guess for me, the question is, how can I be curious about just developing my career? One of the things that my mentor always likes to tell me is don't lose your leadership or don't lose your professionalism. And that to me was huge because it's going back to the curiosity question. If I'm happy with where I am right now or I'm frustrated with where I am right now, neither one of those is moving me forward. So I have to constantly be curious and constantly moving forward. So, and without losing my professionalism, of course.
All right. And the most important person in your life right now, who will you say it is?
Oh, of course, that would be, my family. That's the cliche answer. But I guess again, going back to the managerial level, I really do think, having that mentor, both my father and my mentor, both individuals, have a very impactful role when I'm stuck at work and I'm really mulling over some challenges. Obviously being able to take that home and talk to a spouse about those issues is one thing. Frequently, you don't want to bring work home because that just strains the relationship there. So having that other person, that person who's distant and away from the situation but has been there before, is huge. So I can't emphasize how important they've been in my life.
Right. And what will you talked early on about your secret weapon, your best skill set. But
Mhm.
as a manager, you could explain if you could break that down a little more about your best skill set that you had that get you through all these years of from the military in
Yeah,
logistics and transportation to now.
sure. So, I mean, I think before, if I recall, I was discussing the fact of being able to take myself away from the situation and the daily stratagem and instead looking at the bigger picture. Obviously that does help immensely, especially during stressful situations. Because I think a lot of the time, what I've experienced in the office or just working on the floor, the production floor, is as you're going on a day-to-day basis. You're trained, you're culled, if you will, to look at what is my KPI, what is my key performance indicator that I'm being asked to meet at this moment right now. And I think it's very, very easy to get stuck in that loop of I'm going to try the process I have. It's not quite working, but we'll try again tomorrow. And it's not quite working, and we'll try again tomorrow. And it becomes a silly kind of loop, really. It's easy to say, okay, well, as a good employee, I'm going to do better, and we're going to try to hit that KPI better tomorrow. But at the end of the day, it's a waste. It's a futile effort. Really the biggest trick to it is to pull yourself away and look at the why and realign what you're doing to that why. And I think if you realign, you say, okay, what is it we're doing? Why is it we're doing this? How are we doing it? Then you go back to what are we doing to reach that why? And if you align it that way, then what you end up seeing is the reason we're doing this is to get to some goal, and this process may not even be necessary. And that's really what I've learned a lot. I had the awesome opportunity. I was working at a e-commerce Walmart facility, a huge facility. This is 1.5 million square feet, and there was actually two buildings. So wonderful environment. I was the assistant general manager there, working for one of the third party logistic companies. The third party staffing companies. And we had a lot of processes that were preordained, if you will. This is the way that Walmart needs it done. Perfectly fine. That's wonderful. So we had our employees out there just rocking and rolling, trying to get the same processes done. But there are certain things, that no matter how much effort, no matter how much, we tried to set the stage for success for these employees. There was no way that they were going to get there. Each and every day they would come in, whether it be quality or, warehousing 101, right? You need to make sure that you have inventory on everything. But if you're missing inventory, then you have to find out why. And if it continues to go missing, you really have to start looking at the root cause analysis on that. But as you start looking at those kind of things, you can either say, okay, well, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, right? Or we're going to try to pull back, look at why we're doing this, and do we even need to do this process the way we're doing it? And what we found out was that by changing small steps in those processes, something as silly as putting up a net behind a rack, something as silly as that, changed the entire paradigm, and all of a sudden these issues that we were so focused and intent on just disappeared. So sometimes just looking at that big picture, that why, is really what makes the biggest difference.
Yes, for real. Now, one last question here. Somebody, you as a manager, you have a supervisor under you,
Right now I do,
manager
yeah.
supervisor, right?
Yep.
So even somebody lower than the manager supervisor, um, they want to get into a position like yours, and they're scared, or they don't know how to go forward. What will you tell them, like how to go about?
One thing I learned, I think I learned it from the military, was that you always need to know how to do the position of the person above you. Always. That's your first and foremost goal. There should be no circumstance in which your boss gets in a car accident, God forbid, and all of a sudden you're in that position. There's no reason why you shouldn't know how to be able to do their position. That's just paramount. You have to own it. At the end of the day, it's up to you. You have to own it. I expect my supervisor right now to be able to come in and do exactly what I'm doing. And if he can't do that, then I take that as a failure on my side, because I haven't allowed him to grow to that point. But from their position, from his position, if I give, my intent is to always give him the tools necessary to be successful, and I just need him to be hungry enough to take it. And that's really what it comes down to, I think. And if I've in the past had managers who don't give me all the tools needed, but that doesn't mean that I should just say, well, throw my hands up and just give up. No, you continue forward. You keep moving forward. You find a way to learn how they do what they do. You take it upon yourself. There's so many examples in history that you can go back to where discipline, personal discipline, and just having that personal ambition to meet your own goals and your own dreams. Follow your dreams, right? It's a cliche saying that we hear all the time, but at the end of the day, it still holds true. People have to reach, and they won't have to want it. That's the first and the biggest thing, is that motivation, if you will. I think the second part, it really goes back to, is just never stop learning. Just never stop learning. There's always going to be something that you can grow into. There's always going to be people who are just stuck doing their basic thing. And if you just say, well, wait a second, let me look at the bigger picture, then you can start doing the job of the person above you better than they are. And that's not to mean they don't do their job well. That's to say that you're thinking outside the box. And that's wonderful. That's what a company wants. You want people who are able to say, okay, what is it we're doing? Why are we doing it this way? And how many different ways can we get there? That's a positive. No one should feel threatened by that.
All right, so you think they should come up to you and ask questions like, how can I get into your position in the future, even with a different company? Should they ask the manager themselves, or they should go about
No, I
finding
think
out a
they
different way?
Yeah, I think they should absolutely, the first step is to make it known that you're interested, for sure. Talk to the manager, say, hey, I see what you're doing over here. I love it. One day I would love to have your job, your shoes. I'd love to be in your shoes. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. And even again, they shouldn't be threatened, not to say that they won't. But at the end of the day, if you want to be in a position, let's say a supply chain manager, there is a lot of education out there that's open and available. APIX is a wonderful organization. You have project management, which is an amazing thing to learn that will always benefit a supply chain manager. There's just a litany of different topics and subjects that you can pick up, and don't, what's it all saying? Don't get it just from me. Research it. Go out there, Google it. Start thinking about, hey, pull up a job description for supply chain manager or a job posting, and read through it and say, oh, that's what it's looking for. That's what it's looking for. I need someone Six Sigma. What is that? Go online, research it. Again, be hungry. Think about what you want and go for it. And obviously having a mentor who can guide you through that. I've seen it 100 times too, where you have an individual say, hey, I love this job. I want to be a supply chain manager. I want to be in distribution or e-commerce, whatever it is. and they start down that road and they start picking up, well, wait a second, I like this, but maybe IT is kind of more for me because I like it better, and that's part of the journey. There's nothing wrong with that. So, don't have a fixed mindset, open the mind, think about all the different ways you can learn to get where you're going, and you'll get there.
All right. Anything else you want to mention before we close up to tell the world, tell the audience?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. This is brand new to me. You reached out to me on LinkedIn. I think it was absolutely wonderful. I'm just another manager out in the world of management, of people trying to get things done. And to be honest with you, I think leader is the better term. Leadership is huge, and that's what we're all really in the business for. But you, sir, are the ones giving us the opportunity to open this up and to discuss it. So thank you.
Thank you. And how can people get onto you? Like how about LinkedIn, or how could they, if somebody want
No,
to
please.
contact you?
Well, yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the best way. I have a number of followers right now, so just Google, or I guess put in there Ted Villwock, Villwock, and you can certainly find me.
All right, Ted. Well, thank you very much for participating, for being here, for being willing. I appreciate it, and I think a lot of other people gonna appreciate it too.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.